Luka Doncic got his extension done. De'Aaron Fox, too. Is Kevin Durant next? Well, maybe not if the Houston Rockets have their way. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Donnie, the Rockets made, I thought, some of the best moves of the summer. They're a team that is very clearly ready to compete in the Western Conference. They're going to compete on opening night, by the way, as well as Christmas Day. Clearly, the NBA sees them as a team on the rise, but it appears they're not quite ready to commit long-term, or at least not go all in for Kevin Durant. Does that surprise you at all?
No, not particularly. That doesn't mean they don't want to keep him, but I just think that there may be some questions about how much money they're willing to offer him. And I think that makes a lot of sense when you start talking about a guy his age at this point. So we'll see what happens with that ultimately. But no, I'm not really surprised per se.
So this is Tim McMahon on the Hoop Collective podcast, said the Rockets aren't going to go all in. By all appearances and by what I've heard, they're not going all in on an extension for Kevin Durant. Now, that doesn't mean it won't happen, but there have been rumblings of KD not going to push for the full max. I don't know that the Rockets are going to put anything on the table that's close to the max. So if Kevin Durant is not getting a max contract, what does that tell you about the NBA and where we're at right now? If a player the caliber of KD is not max eligible, and is that the way things should be? Because obviously he's being discounted due to his age.
Yeah. One thing because we've been talking about max salaries a bit recently with like Trey and De'Aaron. One thing that kind of popped up as a comment is, what is a max player? I think that's a good question because that's subjective. I think it largely depends on how valuable a player is. And then there's other factors like age, which I think is impacting KD in this situation. I don't really mind a team not wanting to pay a player, even if it's KD with his cachet and his history and all that stuff. I don't really mind a team not wanting to pay a max salary to a 37-year-old, 38-year-old player over the next couple of seasons here. So I don't necessarily mind that, but I think that is super subjective because, we were just on the video the other day saying that Trey should get a max salary, for example, right?
And on the flip side, saying that, was it going a little bit too far to give De'Aaron Fox a max deal?
Exactly.
The way that the Spurs did. Yeah, when we look at this, I do think under the new collective bargaining agreement, and this is why the De'Aaron Fox deal stood out, under the new deal, max contracts are not a given. Max contracts are not, hey, anybody who is all-star adjacent automatically gets a max. That's not what we see. And this would be, I think, exhibit A of that argument. If Kevin freaking Durant is not getting a max contract, that tells you that we are in a new era of fiscal responsibility around the NBA. If, hey, this guy's 37 years old, and the Houston Rockets, remember, the people make the argument, the Spurs gave up stuff in order to get De'Aaron Fox, and they were kind of committed at that point. They had to give him max. Yeah, the Rockets gave up stuff too to get KD. They gave up the pick that turned into Kaman Maluach, who was a very exciting young big. They gave up Dylan Brooks. They gave up Jalen Green to get Kevin Durant. They are committed to Kevin Durant. And if the Rockets are hesitating to give him the max, given the production that he still has at this stage of his career, again, I think that is more reflective of the market that we're in now. And it's why the De'Aaron Fox deal was a bit of a surprise. I'm not surprised that they're hesitating on giving him a max. It's not just, of course, whether or not KD is worth it. It's also their roster building moving forward. But in a vacuum, I would say Kevin Durant is producing at the quality of a max level player. But this is age becoming a factor here.
And age is the number one thing, in fact, because if he's 31, there's no question about this, even in today's current climate with the max salaries. Like, that's the number one thing about this. So,
absolutely. If Kevin, like you said, if Kevin Durant is 31, not only do the Rockets happily give him a max if he's 31,
if he's 35,
if he's 35, and you know what else? If they get to do that, they go celebrate in Vegas at a Backstreet Boys concert too, to toast their good fortune at being allowed to give Kevin Durant.
That was so random for the record.
Impact salary, that was
so random.
So this is what Brian Windhorst added into this. He said, "I think the Rockets are like." Hey, he just wants it that way.
Oh my God. Of course you did. Of course you did. You had to stop to add that
I
in
don't know.
there.
Is that
Wait, was
in
it?
sync?
I don't
Is
know.
that in
That's
sync?
not me, man. That's you. I
That
don't
was
know.
not my. Oh,
It's
that
in
was
between
that,
us.
those were not my jams. I think the Rockets are like, it's not ideal, but I don't think they would panic if they go to the season with Kevin Durant just on the contract that he's on, just on the expiring deal. So while this is one of the things I talked about when Durant was on the market about whether a team looked at Durant as an expiring and would be comfortable with him on an expiring contract or felt they needed to give him a 2-year, $120 million extension that was going to go into effect, what teams would pay for him. As you said, Rafael Stone, since he's been the GM of the Rockets, he's signed quite a few giant contracts, and most of them have been short. So the Rockets, not only are they balking at the idea of giving Kevin Durant a max, but they're comfortable going into the season with him as an expiring contract, which Donnie, I know you talked about a little bit yesterday with, if LeBron potentially hits free agency in 2026 and he could be available, there's already teams lining up to potentially get him. Kevin Durant could indeed be a free agent on the market next summer if he wants max money and the Rockets just go, we're cool having you on an expiring deal. And if you walk for nothing, you walk for nothing next summer. It's not going to bother us. That think about this. The Rockets are having this stance essentially of we would rather lose the stuff we lost by trading for Kevin Durant and get just one season out of KD than give KD a max. Mm-hmm. That speaks volumes to the way teams are being constructed and how important financial flexibility moving into the future is.
I mean, with the Rockets in particular, looking at their cap sheet, it's interesting. It's not like they would have any trouble sliding KD into what they have here. They don't really have a lot going on in terms of like big salaries on the roster currently, other than KD. So that's where it's kind of interesting. But yeah, like on that piece that I talked about with LeBron, it was like, okay, well, if he wants a certain amount of money, then that obviously limits what's available to him. But if he's willing to take an exception, I don't know that he will be, but if he's willing to take an MLE or something like that, that would obviously open up a world of possibilities. And I don't know if KD would be in that same space. Maybe KD wants more than that, of course. But yeah, we talk a lot about like Jokic or Giannis, which is understandable. Those guys are much younger than these guys are, but there are older stars on the market potentially too over the next couple of seasons. On the topic of KD, in the first initial paragraph that we read, they said, I don't know that he's even going to be looking for a max. So I thought that was interesting. I never really jumped on that, but I thought that was interesting. I wonder what that number is for KD. If he's willing to take, say, 40 million, like would the Rockets be okay giving him a 2-year 80, something like that, 90?
Well, and that's where when you look at a lot of these numbers for Houston, now they still have to be, all kind of added up. There's a lot of question marks here. I would assume Reed Shepherd and Amin Thompson, they're getting their options picked up. There's no question there. Fred VanVleet has that player option. I would assume he picks it up. He's a good fit in Houston, but maybe he opts out and wants a longer term deal. Maybe you got to figure that out. There's some stuff to sort through there. But I do look, and there is flexibility below the first apron here. A significant 68. But again, I don't part of that, they don't have a max salary on their books.
But that was my whole point, though. Like, KD's kind of standing by himself with that max salary.
Yeah, I mean, their next biggest salary is 21% of the cap, and that's Alperen Sengun. And that again, you celebrate getting to give Alperen Sengun 21% of the cap. He's a steal at that number. But with Kevin Durant, with him not on the books right now, what you're talking about is even with Fred VanVleet coming back, even with picking up Reed Shepherd, Amin Thompson, you're going to have to pay Tari Eason. So there's deals that are going to add up here. They're going to eat into that. But the point is that there could be flexibility here below the first apron that would potentially allow the Rockets to again be a first apron hard cap team, which would essentially mean a full mid-level exception team. So we're talking off the top of my head, if it was 14.1 million this year, maybe it'll be, I don't know, just about 15 million next year for a full mid-level. They used it this year to pick up Dorian Finney-Smith to go get his deal onto their books. So what I'm talking about is a Rockets team that is already being recognized around the NBA, right? They get the coveted opening night slot against the Warriors. They get the coveted Christmas Day matchup against the Lakers. This is a team on the rise, and they may have the ability to keep all their players and have the ability to go spend in free agency as well with an MLE. So I wonder if that is part of this consideration too. If you're the Rockets and you look and you say, you know what, worst case scenario, Kevin Durant walks for nothing. Well, we're going to have a bunch of flexibility under that first apron. We're going to have a bit of spending power in that scenario, and we'll be able to go get somebody else. Or we can also work with KD and say, hey, if you structure your deal like this and Tari Eason structures his deal like this, and Fred VanVleet's going to opt out, but then we're going to sign him on a longer-term deal, and it's going to look this way. We can put all the puzzle pieces together, and then with a full MLE, we're going to go and get this guy, right? Yeah. There's a world where the Rockets are actually, despite how talented this team already is, if Kevin Durant is willing to play ball, as you're talking about, Donnie, there's a world where the Rockets are even adding another significant piece to this roster next summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And by extension, I do wonder if something similar is happening for LeBron next offseason if he wants to continue playing. However, I think situationally it'll be different. I think the Lakers will try to shop around first and then come back versus with the Rockets here. They may look at alternatives if there's anything out there, but they're probably going to work with KD and figure something out. But yeah, I think that's certainly a possibility with them. If KD is willing to take a little less, it would open up, as you said, a bunch of opportunities. And I'm sure that that's something that they're thinking about. I just thought it was interesting that both sides are not really trying to get the max.
Yeah.
And if you're KD, you may just at this point be trying to get the team to be as good as it can, win one more ring, certainly with how his rings are received historically and all that stuff. I wonder if he's trying to win one more just to get it done and say, hey, I won one away from Steph, similarly to how Steph was able to win one, or actually two away from really before and after, but certainly afterwards. So I think with KD, maybe he's considering that stuff.
If KD doesn't get the max, does that then put pressure on LeBron to not get the max, or vice versa?
I do think so. I think these guys are both in a similar boat, and I think that would matter. It's not to say that one would look at the other one and say, oh, well, I have no choice. No, they would still do what they think is right at that point, whether that's to take more or less, whatever. And their situations are different. I think LeBron's got less time on the runway. KD could still play until he's LeBron's age and maybe a couple of years older. I think that is different. But ultimately, though, I do think that is something that could potentially be a factor in all of this. There's also some alternative world where these guys are free agents at the same time and decide to go play together somewhere. That's
oh man,
that's certainly a possibility, but I don't think it'd happen.
That's the other piece to this, though, right? If Kevin Durant, now first of all, if KD goes and teams up with LeBron somewhere, the eye rolls around the league will be.
Nobody would care though, because they'd be 38 and 42, man.
Well, and that's certainly a factor. Both guys caught so much flack in their career for joining up with other superstars. We talk about LeBron going to Miami and then KD going to Golden State. It would be a bit ironic or funny if they went and teamed up together somewhere, but it's also not impossible since they are both going to be free agents, or at least it's looking that way. Again, KD could sign an extension here. You never know, but looking like they could both be free agents at the same time. So let me finish with that. If KD leaves, let's say KD bounces to another team. The Rockets are already his fifth team.
Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah, is there a point where that diminishes? Yeah, I hate using the word legacy because that gets overblown, but does it diminish his standing in NBA history if you bounce to too many teams?
Well, KD is a unique case because of the Golden State stint and the way that that's received around the world.
Yeah.
Especially not so much as it pertains to Steph, but I think more so as it pertains to KD. But I think he's a unique case because of that and the fact he hasn't been able to win elsewhere to afterwards, like I was mentioning a moment ago. And yeah, I do think after a point, it does become a bit much, especially in, again, the case of KD, where you got to realize he tried to build two super teams and they both failed terribly, right? In Brooklyn, maybe there's a world where KD's foot's, an inch shorter and they are, whatever, a little bit shorter, and they're able to hit that shot and move on. Maybe they win that year, but that didn't happen, right? But he tried that. They flamed out, tried it in Phoenix. They flamed out. Here he is now. And this is entirely different than anything he's tried to do probably since OKC, where he's here and they don't have they've got another star, I think, in Şengün. I think the other guys are good, but it's not like a Steph is on this team. It's not like a Harden and Kyrie are on this team. Like it's entirely different. So I do think that'd be a bit much, which is why I do think KD may mess around and sign a contract similar to the last one Van Vliet was on, where it's just like a couple years, 40 million, maybe an option. It certainly wouldn't be a team option, but an option on that last year. I do think they would lock something up.
That would be interesting to see if they would do something along those lines. But again, the bottom line with all of this is it appears that who it is getting a max is shifting around the NBA. And it looks like the De'Aaron Fox deal will be more of an outlier than a norm. I still have Trae Young one tier up, and so I still have him as a max, but clearly age is mattering in who gets this kind of a deal. And if Kevin Durant himself and the Rockets are both like, yeah, maybe not a max, well, the times they are a-changing around the NBA. And I think if I'm a Houston Rockets fan, I don't look at this and think, uh-oh, we could lose KD. I look at this and think, man, this could set us up pretty nicely in the coming years, because you could mitigate any sort of decline due to age for KD by not giving him a max contract and having increased flexibility on the rest of your roster. So I think this is actually a very positive thing for the Rockets.
I look at this as nothing but a positive personally.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he's leaving, right? And so really, I think it's great and it's huge that they don't have at least perceived friction in terms of like how much money he's trying to make, because he's not even looking for a max.
Right.
Now, how close is he getting to a max? Like, is he's like, like, does he only
I
want,
will
like,
give you a $1
off?
discount. Hey, it's
like,
not
exactly.
a max.
Like, how close is he? I guess that remains to be seen. But it sounds like they're kind of on the same page here. So unless things just go really wrong this season and there's bad blood, I would expect for him, if he doesn't do it this offseason, frankly, I would expect for him to re-up.
Was similar to the LeBron situation. A lot will be decided this season if they don't come to an extension before the season starts. The Rockets, Kevin Durant, they're going to see how things play out over the course of the season and then go from there. And that's going to be critical in all of this. What happens over the course of the season? Is Houston a juggernaut? And they say, yes, sign us up for more of this. Do some pieces not fit and they need to make changes?
Do they trade KD at the deadline?
I mean, they could.
We didn't talk about that. That's certainly a possibility. If things go wrong, they could do that. He's fat expiring.
Mm-hmm. They could flip him at the deadline. It would be funny as if they traded him to Golden State, but they would not do that. He had the opportunity to go to Golden State last year and chose not to. But I mean, in theory, they could. I'm sure that's far like down on their list of outcomes. Yeah, but in theory, they could.
It's possible.
Yeah, same. I mean, he doesn't have a no trade clause, so
the infinite multiverse. That's why the other guy wanted a no trade clause. Because I think if things go wrong, this may be controversial, but they may mess around and look, but they can't. Which Rich Paul had that thing where he was like, "Oh, LeBron has a no trade clause."
I do wonder if part of him picking up that player option was to maintain the no trade, and if the Lakers, 100%. This is pure speculation on my part, but what if the no trade was going to go away? If he had signed a new deal, if they said that we weren't going to put a no trade in, and so LeBron said, fine, I'm picking it up then, because he could have got a little bit more money if he had just signed a new deal. Yeah. But although on a 1-year deal, he would have had a no trade anyway, would have had a de facto. So maybe it wouldn't matter.
Maybe.
All right. Well, everybody, let us know your thoughts in the comment section about Kevin Durant maybe not getting a max, and maybe it not being such a bad thing. Is this just a sign of the times? Kevin Durant is not going to get a max contract from the Houston Rockets. And do you think an extension actually gets done before the season begins? Give us your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe right here to the Basketball Bulletin on YouTube. Go check out the store. We've got some merch that we put out.
Oh, yeah.
You guys can go give that a look as well.
And we appreciate podcast.
That's right. And the podcast feed, can go look at that. Speaking of which, I'll have to make sure I put this one over on the podcast side as well. Thank you again, everybody, for everything you've done to make this this journey so successful so far. We appreciate all of you. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.